Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to 168 Hours, your weekly roundup of the top local stories. I am Abdullah Ahil, your host for the evening. Stay tuned. The Maldives Zakat House announces that Zakat al-Fitr contributions for the 2026 Ramadan season reached a record $973,336, a milestone that represents the most substantial volume of offerings in the nation's recent history.
The entirety of the amassed funds has been disbursed to those on the National Registry of the Impoverished and Needy, the institution confirms, marking a significant achievement for the state's charitable framework. This year's figures represents a disciplined increase in charitable giving, surpassing $880,456 collected in 2025. $816,798 gathered in 2024 and $823,056 recorded in 2023. To facilitate this record participation, the administration utilized a multi-channel collection strategy that integrated an expansive suite of digital payment gateways. Citizens fulfilled their religious obligations through platforms including Diragu and Uridu applications, VML and the Maldives Islamic Bank alongside FahiPay, Awas App and Bandari Pay. These digital efforts were complemented by physical service desks established on 22nd February to allow for in-person cash and transactions. This distribution of funds achieved a historic precedent for the nation's social welfare system, the agency reports, with the allocation reaching $389 per capita, the largest equal per capita distributed of Fitr Zakat ever recorded in the country. A dedicated sum of $901,428 was explicitly directed to the impoverished and the needy, a group that notably included 62 orphans.
Minister of Transport and Civil Aviation Mohammed Amin announces the Maldives and Australia will be able to operate unrestricted direct flights.
The development follows the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the aeronautical authorities of the two countries to advance a bilateral air service agreement. In a post on social media, Transport Minister Amin said the agreement removes restrictions on airline operations between the Maldives and Australia, creating new opportunities for travel, tourism and trade. The government said the move forms part of a broader effort to strengthen the Maldives' transport network and improve connectivity for passengers. Several key air and sea transport projects are currently underway as part of this strategy. The agreement was signed on behalf of the Maldives by Abdul Haris, Chairman of the Maldives Civil Aviation Authority, Jim Wolf, Assistant Secretary for International Aviation at Australia's Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Communications, Sports and the Arts, signed on behalf of the Australian government. According to the Maldives Civil Aviation Authority, the agreement reflects the close relationship between the Maldives and Australia, highlighting ongoing efforts to enhance air connectivity between the two countries. The authority says the removal of restrictions is expected to facilitate increased airline operations, further supporting tourism growth and expanding trade links between the Maldives and Australia.
The Maldives officially commences its first term as a member of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, or CSW, at the opening of the 71st session held at UN headquarters in New York.
Elected on 4th April 2025 during proceedings at the UN Economic and Social Council ECOSOC, the Maldives will serve a 5-year term from 2026 to 2030, marking a significant milestone in the nation's engagement with global gender equality initiatives. The occasion follows the conclusion of the 70th session of the CSW, which ran from 9th to 19th March under the theme, quote, ensuring and strengthening access to justice for all women and girls, unquote, focusing on inclusive legal systems, the elimination of discriminatory laws, and dismantling structural barriers. During the recent session, Dr. Ali Nasir Muhammad, permanent representative of the Maldives to the United Nations, delivered a statement underscoring the nation's progress in advancing women's leadership in governance and decision-making. He He highlighted the Maldives' use of data-driven policies, strengthened legal protections, and expanded access to support services for women and girls at the Group of 77, an emerging partners ministerial roundtable co-hosted by the Maldives, Timor-Leste, Brazil, South Africa, Kazakhstan, and UN Women Ambassador Dr. Ali Nasir emphasized the critical need for gender-responsive financial mechanisms to accelerate sustainable development and achieve gender equality. In another historic first, the Maldives, represented by officials from the Ministry of Social and Family Development, delivered a voluntary national presentation at the Commission outlining its national commitments and achievements toward gender equality. This presentation underscored the nation's evolving role on the global stage in championing women's rights. Established in 1946, the Commission on the Status of Women remains the principal UN body dedicated to promoting gender equality and the empowerment of women worldwide, convening annually to shape international standards and policies.
According to a formal assurance issued by Mohammed Saeed, the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, the government will ensure the uninterrupted supply of oil, gas, and staple food items despite mounting global economic pressures and escalating conflict in the Middle East.
This commitment arrives as a widening conflict involving Israel, the United States, and Iran has triggered retaliatory strikes impacting Gulf nations and a sharp ascent in global crude prices. Beyond the immediate spike in prices, the international oil supply chain is confronting a multitude of complex challenges and broader geopolitical constraints, Minister Saeed noted in a recent assessment of the destabilized energy sector. To mitigate the impacts of these circumstances, the administration of President Dr. Mohamed Muiz has executed strategic measures to insulate the domestic economy, Minister Saeed stated, including the aggressive management of national oil reserves by the State Trading Organization (STO). The efficacy of these preemptive strategies was underscored by the arrival of 2 dedicated oil shipments last week, the minister explained, which was secured through a methodical procurement process and formal nomination agreements with international suppliers. While the global market surge has necessitated domestic price adjustments, the government has intervened to systematically cushion the financial blow, officials confirmed. Citizens will be shielded from extreme volatility as a portion of escalating cost is subsided, utilizing the STO's profit margins. Any subsequent modifications to the prices of essential commodities will only be implemented following meticulous evaluation of all operational factors, the government stated in a final reassurance regarding national food and energy security.
President Dr. Mohamed Muiz announces plans to introduce a special law to implement the death penalty in the Maldives. Speaking to media, the president said there are individuals in the country who have completed all judicial stages required for capital punishment, but the sentence has not yet been carried out. He noted that previous administrations had pledged to implement the death penalty but had not done so. The president added that in a fully Islamic country, it is not a choice even for the highest level of authority to avoid such decisions. The president said the government is now working to formally incorporate the death penalty into the legal framework, with the Attorney General's office currently preparing the necessary legislation. He said the government aims to submit a bill on the death penalty during the current session of Parliament. He stated that introducing a specific legal framework for capital punishment is essential to ensure justice and uphold social order in the Maldives. The president also noted that the state does not retain the authority to withhold implementation when all stages within the Islamic legal context is completed. President Dr. Mohamed Muiz announces a significant reversal of national social housing policy, declaring that citizens will no longer be forced to forfeit small privately owned land parcels to the state to qualify for government housing. Under the previous regulatory framework, individuals seeking state-provided housing were mandated to surrender personal land holdings smaller than 400 square feet. The new amendment will instead allow these citizens to transfer such property to family members, a move intended to preserve generational wealth and alleviate the financial strain on local households. The administration will soon release updated guidelines detailing the new transfer protocols, with the finalized policy expected to be made public imminently, President Muiz told reporters during a press conference. The shift in regulations is designed to apply retroactively, offering a reprieve to past participants of the state's housing initiatives. Beneficiaries who were allocated flats during the most recent housing scheme and who had already surrendered their property to comply with the previous rules will now be permitted to reassign those land titles to their relatives. This policy reversal was driven by a recognition of the severe financial impact the previous rules had on local citizens. Many property owners had previously acquired loans and invested heavily in developing and constructing homes on these small plots to secure long-term benefits for their kin. Forcing families to forfeit these developed lands, President Muiz observed, equated to a profound and unjustifiable financial waste for the affected families. The strict condition of relinquishing property to the state will henceforth be exclusively enforced upon individuals who already hold the title to an apartment acquired through a social housing scheme. President Dr. Mohammad Muiz says his administration will not allow any slowdown in the implementation of key housing and healthcare projects, assuring that these initiatives will continue despite current economic pressures.
Speaking to journalists during a press conference at the President's office, President Dr. Muiz detailed a development strategy predicated on a diverse array of operational and fiscal frameworks. Infrastructure sustained by international grant aid, foreign loans, and contractor financing models will proceed without interruption, he said, regardless of broader national pressures. The administration has placed a primary focus on the preservation of all initiatives slated within the current annual budget. To mitigate the risk of economic instability, the government is moving to facilitate outstanding payments to contractors, a measure intended to ensure that construction and development operations retain their momentum. A cessation of these works, President Muiz warned, could bring the nation to a standstill, an outcome he characterized as having severe detrimental impacts. The president also addressed the status of the infrastructure pledges made during the recent elections, noting that the vast majority of these commitments have already been formally signed and awarded to contractors. The administration is maintaining rigorous oversight of evolving domestic conditions. Any necessary recalibration or reordering of future project timelines, President Muiz noted, will be implemented only following a thorough assessment of national circumstances, a move designed to ensure a responsive and pragmatic approach to the country's development portfolio.
Mohammad Saeed, the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, announces a strategic opportunity is now available for established private enterprises to access the nation's central logistics network, a move designed to bolster the national logistics sector and guarantee food security.
According to Minister Saeed, the initiative utilizes a primary framework named Anchor to interconnect the Malé Commercial Harbour, the Kurdufushi Regional Port and the Addu Regional Port. While local firms gain unprecedented access, the minister stated that Maldives Ports Limited will retain its leading role to ensure an uninterrupted flow of essential supplies under President Dr. Mohammad Muiz's overarching policy. Minister Saeed highlighted the strategic importance for this system has been amplified by the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. To insulate the nation, he noted that operations to expand national storage are advancing rapidly. Regarding fuel constraints arising from Middle Eastern unrest, Minister Saeed reassured the public that the State Trading Organization is working to maintain an unexhausted stockpile, noting a fresh shipment arrived this past Saturday. To guarantee long-term security, the government has formalized plans for a strategic petroleum reserve across 3 regions, which, once operational, will store enough fuel to meet the nation's energy demands for a full year, government officials confirmed.
Tariq Ibrahim, the Minister of Tourism and Environment, announces the inaugural development under the nation's Special Economic Zone legislation, a comprehensive floating solar project known as Solar City, anticipated to reach completion within 2 years.
Situated east of Kudamados within the Greater Malé region, The initiative is advancing through a phased implementation strategy to address an electrical load that currently stands at 120 megawatts. The undertaking encompasses an integrated power network featuring advanced transformers, dedicated battery storage, and a 4.5-kilometer submarine cable connecting to Hurumale. Financed entirely through foreign investment, the project operates under a commercial framework where the State Electric Company Limited will purchase the power. Officials are currently finalizing the power purchasing agreement. The administration is concurrently expanding solar infrastructure across other islands to circumvent spatial constraints and meet a 33% renewable mandate by 2028.
The National Awards Committee opens nominations for this year's National Awards following the publication of the award criteria and guidelines in the Government Gazette.
Nominations will be accepted from 25th March until 2 p.m. on Thursday, 30th April. This year, applications will be accepted exclusively through the President's Office form submission portal. The National Awards Committee has urged applicants to ensure that all required documentation is submitted along with the application form. Application will be accepted across 39 primary categories as in previous years. Private individuals, companies, associations, and other entities may submit nominations directly either on their own behalf or on behalf of others without getting through a government agency. Government agencies and independent institutions are also eligible to submit nominations. In assessing individual nominees, the committee will consider services rendered after the age of 18. The awards are presented in two categories: the National Award of Honor and the National Award of Recognition. The National Awards will be presented at the official function marking National Day.
The Maldives is set to introduce the Pearl Residency Visa for investors next month. Minister of Economic Development and Trade Mohammed Saeed announces, describing it as a new approach to strengthening the country's economic outlook.
The government has engaged Henley and Partners to design the Pearl Residency program. The agreement was made during President Dr. Mohamed Muiz's visit to Singapore last year, alongside an investor forum held during the trip. The program is aimed at attracting foreign investment while allowing investors to reside in the Maldives for extended periods. Speaking at a press conference held at the President's office, Minister Saeed said that the legal framework required to implement the program is currently being finalized in collaboration with the Attorney General's office. Minister Saeed said the initiative is expected to open up new economic opportunities, particularly in light of changing global dynamics. He noted that current geopolitical developments, including tensions in the Middle East, present an opportunity for the Maldives to attract investors through such programs. He added that Henley and Partners' involvement would strengthen the program's reach, noting that the firm operates in 33 countries and has an extensive global network. President Dr. Mohamed Muiz has previously announced plans to introduce the residency program in April, offering new opportunities for foreign investors to engage with the Maldivian economy. The government is also working on additional initiatives to diversify tourism and investment, including the introduction of special visas for content creators and remote workers.
And that's all the news we have for this week's 168 Hours. We will bring you further updates in the next week.